That's a hell of a way to treat a vet, man.
You're an animal doctor?
No, a veteran. I was in Nam, man.
Falling Down wasn't just a thriller. It was a public meltdown caught on film. A summer day in Los Angeles boiled over into a one-man war, where the only explosions came from patients snapping in traffic. But behind the glasses and the briefcase, it was gridlock madness. Michael Douglas didn't just star, he saved the film, taking a pay cut to keep it alive. The score throbbed with the same fury in his veins, and when it was over, he called it his best role ever. These are 20 weird facts about Falling Down, and buried in the heat and the horn blasts, Foster's license plate hid a joke you'll never spot at first glance. This wasn't road rage, it was a declaration of war on the world. Number 1. Before Falling Down hit theaters like a punch to the gut, it was circling the drain. The script had been shopped everywhere, and everywhere said no. Too bleak, too risky, too much of a mirror to a world nobody wanted to admit existed. The kind of story that executives feared would have people walking out instead of lining up. The only offer left? A made-for-TV deal with HBO. A smaller budget, no big theatrical rollout. The kind of quiet burial where bold scripts go to die. Then Michael Douglas got his hands on it. He saw something the studios didn't. Not a box office poison pill, but a character study so raw it could define an era. Foster wasn't a superhero or a serial killer. He was something far more unsettling. A man you could pass on the street. A man who might be you on your worst day. Douglas didn't just say yes, he fought for it. He went to Warner Brothers, pushed for a full theatrical release, and when they hesitated over costs, he made them an offer no star of his stature ever makes. He'd slash his own salary to keep it within budget. It was a gamble. He'd made millions for films like Wall Street and Basic Instinct, but here he was, cutting his own paycheck in half for a story most people wanted buried. That bet paid off. Falling Down didn't just survive, it roared into theaters, grossing $96 million worldwide on a $25 million budget. And instead of vanishing into late-night cable, it became one of the most talked about, debated, and dissected films of the 90s. For Douglas, it wasn't about the money. It was about telling a story that Hollywood didn't want told, and making sure the world saw it on the big screen, exactly where it belonged. Number 2. It didn't come from a studio boardroom. It came from a bad day on the road. Writer Ebby Rose Smith read a small news story about a trucker who snapped, using his rig as a weapon during an LA freeway dispute. It wasn't just the violence that stuck with him. It was the idea of someone so fed up with the world that one small push sent him over the edge. In just 10 weeks, he poured it into a script, a ticking time bomb disguised as a man in a short-sleeve shirt. And here's the kicker. It was the only screenplay he ever wrote. Smith was mostly a part-time actor, popping up in Cheers, Turner and Hooch, and a handful of films. But with Falling Down, he captured something bigger than a headline. He called it a man of the past trying to get by in a world that rejects him. The ghost of an America that no longer existed.
85 cents.
I don't understand.
85 cents. 85 cents.
85 cents? That doesn't give me enough money for the phone call. I'll give you 50 cents, you give me 50 cents change.
No way.
Yes, way.
Number 3. Before Michael Douglas ever gripped that battered briefcase, the role of William Foster passed through Hollywood like a cursed treasure. Irresistible at first glance, but radioactive once you got too close. The studio's casting list read like a roll call of legends. Harrison Ford, Jack Nicholson, Dustin Hoffman, Robert De Niro, Robin Williams, Jeff Bridges, Mel Gibson. One by one, the answers came back the same. Some feared the darkness of the role. Others worried audiences wouldn't follow them into a story where the line between victim and villain blurred until it vanished. And a few wanted nothing to do with the political firestorm they knew the film would ignite. So Foster stayed trapped on the page, a man without a face, without a voice, waiting for someone willing to risk everything. Then came Michael Douglas. Where others saw a career-ending gamble, Douglas saw a challenge worth bleeding for. He stepped into Foster's shoes without flinching, embracing every moral contradiction, every unsettling truth. And that's the irony. Falling Down could have been a Ford thriller, a De Niro pressure cooker, or a Robin Williams against type shocker. But in the end, every no cleared the way for Douglas to deliver the performance he'd later call the finest of his career.
I'm rolling back prices to 1965. Donuts, package of 6, how much?
$1.12.
Oh! Aspirin, price?
$3.40.
Please.
Number 4. The glasses, the short-sleeved white shirt, and that perfectly severe flat top. William Foster didn't just walk onto the screen, he looked like he'd stepped out of a photograph from 1959, and that was no accident. The haircut came from Joel Schumacher's own hairdresser, who pitched a crisp, military-inspired style, the kind that belonged to a man who once believed the world had order, rules, and a place for him in it. Douglas didn't hesitate. The moment the clippers buzzed, he saw the character take shape. With the flat top, Foster wasn't just another man stuck in traffic. He became a relic from the post-war boom years, the kind of guy who might have worked in the defense industry, served a tour overseas, bought the house with the picket fence, a man who had every reason to think the future would be bright, until the world changed without him. Add the glasses and the neatly pressed shirt, and you had the perfect visual contradiction. A time traveler from America's golden era, stranded in the chaos of the 1990s. And the longer he walked through Los Angeles, the clearer it became. He didn't like what he saw.
That's not fucking graffiti, that's a sign. He can't read it, man. I'll read it for you. It says this is fucking private property, no fucking trespassing.
Says all that?
Yeah.
Well, maybe he wrote it in fucking English, I could fucking understand it.
Thinks he's being funny. I'm not laughing. I'm not either.
Wait a minute.
Number 5. Douglas didn't want Foster to just look like a man from the past. He wanted him to move like one. He studied Vietnam veterans, watched their posture, their precision, the way they carried themselves even years after leaving the service. Every movement was deliberate. The way Foster grips his briefcase, the way he stands, feet planted, shoulders squared. It wasn't overacted. It was muscle memory. A man trained to follow the book, now applying that discipline to a city that doesn't care about rules anymore. That rigid military bearing made Foster even more unnerving because you could see it. This wasn't just some office worker losing it. This was a man with training and nothing left to lose.
Have you ever heard the expression, the customer is always right?
Yeah,
Here I am, the customer.
that's not our policy. You have to order something from the lunch menu.
I don't want lunch.
Yeah, well, hey, I'm really sorry.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm really sorry too.
Number 6. The streets of Los Angeles were supposed to be their set. Instead, they became a war zone. In April 1992, Falling Down was shooting on location in Linwood, just another hot day under the California sun. Then, the verdict in the Rodney King trial dropped. Within hours, the city erupted. Sirens, smoke, and gunshots replaced the quiet hum of the film crew. Joel Schumacher had no choice. He shut everything down and pulled his cast and crew back to the safety of the Warner Brothers lot. For days, the production stayed indoors, shooting whatever they could while the riots raged just miles away. For a film already steeped in themes of frustration, alienation, and urban unrest, the real-life chaos outside the studio walls gave the project an eerie weight. Michael Douglas would later admit, it was impossible not to feel the city's anger bleeding into the story they were telling. Sometimes the danger isn't in the script, it's waiting for you outside the soundstage. Number 7. It's the first thing you see. A sweltering Los Angeles gridlock. Blaring horns, sweaty faces, a Garfield doll glaring from a dashboard. And in the middle of it all, William Foster, slowly boiling alive. That opening wasn't just a traffic jam. Joel Schumacher shot it like a waking nightmare, stretching what should be a few minutes of impatience into a suffocating eternity. The heat shimmered. The air felt heavy. You could almost smell the vinyl baking in the sun. But the inspiration came from somewhere unexpected. Federico Fellini's 1963 classic 8½. That film begins with its own surreal standstill, trapping the main character in his car like a prisoner until he escapes. By floating into the sky. Falling Down skipped the fantasy, but kept the claustrophobia. It turned a mundane morning commute into a breaking point. The exact moment Foster decides he's not staying in his lane anymore. Because sometimes a meltdown starts, in bumper-to-bumper silence. Number 8. Sometimes the best background gag isn't even planned. While shooting in Los Angeles, the crew noticed something bizarre drifting into frame. A massive inflatable butt. Not a prop, not a prank. It was part of a national promotion for Sir Mix-a-Lot's Baby Got Back. Instead of moving it or waiting for it to be deflated, Schumacher just rolled the cameras. The giant backside stayed, wobbling proudly in the distance. No commentary, no explanation, just a perfect little absurdity hiding in the middle of a tense, unraveling story. Number 9. The Whammy Burger scene is pure chaos. A ticking clock, a gun on the counter, and Michael Douglas staring down fast food workers like a man at the end of his rope. rope. And right in the middle of that tension, a tiny crack in the facade. Sheila, the sassy counterworker, was played by Dee Pfeiffer, younger sister of Michelle Pfeiffer, who had just burned herself into pop culture as Catwoman. But Dee had a problem. Michael Douglas's stone-faced, almost absurd delivery in that scene was too much. She couldn't stop smiling. The script called for fear and compliance. Instead, you can catch her fighting the giggles while a gun is in the shot. Director Joel Schumacher saw the footage and didn't yell cut. He kept it. Because that awkward grin in a room full of terrified faces made the moment more human and somehow even more unnerving. It's proof that sometimes the most memorable moments in a thriller are the ones the actors didn't plan.
And you, ma'am? How's the food? I think we have a critic.
Number 10. Before Joel Schumacher drenched falling down in sweat, sun glare, and urban decay, the director's chair was almost handed to someone with a very different kind of chaos in mind. Dennis Hopper. Hopper was Hollywood's wild card, the man who had lived Easy Rider, stared down madness in Apocalypse Now, and radiated danger on and off screen. He'd also directed a few films, and the studio thought his volatile energy might fit the script's unpredictable lead. But Hopper's vision, whatever it was, never made it past the pitch. Whether it was creative disagreements, scheduling, or the studio simply fearing too much volatility behind the camera, the idea fizzled. That's when Joel Schumacher stepped in. He stripped away the romantic outlaw vibe Hopper might have leaned toward, replacing it with a tighter, more suffocating tension. His Los Angeles wasn't a rebel's playground, it was a pressure cooker, a city that felt ready to explode. In the end, the film traded Hopper's likely fever dream for Schumacher's surgical control, and it's hard to imagine falling down any other way. Number 11. It's the moment William Foster finally says it out loud. Gun in hand, cornered, staring at the man who's been chasing him, he asks, almost gently,
I'm the bad guy?
It's not a punchline. It's not even a question to anyone else. It's the sound of a man who thought he was the hero, suddenly realizing he's not. The line struck a nerve. People quoted it in bars, on message boards, in think pieces. It was self-pity, self-awareness, and self-delusion wrapped into one. And in just 4 words, Douglas gave the movie its perfect moral gut punch.
I'm the bad guy?
Yeah.
How'd that happen? I did everything they told me to. Did you know I build missiles? I helped to protect America? You should be rewarded for that.
Number 12. When Falling Down hit theaters, the argument started immediately. Vincent Canby of the New York Times called it the most interesting film of the year, comparing it to a psychological inkblot test. Because depending on who you were, a laid-off worker, a city cop, a Korean shop owner, you saw someone else's truth staring back at you. For some, Foster was a folk hero. For others, he was a cautionary tale in khakis. And the brilliance of Schumacher's direction was that it never told you which was right. It just held up the mirror.
See, this is what I'm talking about. Turn around, look at that. You see what I mean? It's plump, it's juicy, it's 3 inches thick. Look at this sorry, miserable, squashed thing. Can anybody tell me what's wrong with this picture? Anybody?
Number 13. When Falling Down hit theaters, it didn't just spark conversations, it lit fires. One of the earliest and loudest came from the Korean American Grocers Association. They were furious over the film's opening confrontation between William Foster and a Korean shopkeeper, a scene many saw as reinforcing ugly stereotypes of Asian immigrants as broken English, penny-pinching caricatures. For some, the moment played as satire, a tense portrait of cultural misunderstandings boiling over in a city already fractured by race and class. For others, it was just another punchline at the expense of a marginalized community. The protests weren't quiet. Statements were issued. Boycotts were organized. The backlash grew so heated that South Korea itself stepped in. The country outright canceled the film's release, refusing to put it in local theaters at all. It was proof that Falling Down wasn't just entertainment. It was a mirror, one that reflected very different things depending on who was looking, and not everyone liked what they saw staring back.
Don't forget me.
Number 14. Decades later, Falling Down was still being reinterpreted and reigniting arguments. In 2017, LA Weekly called it one of Hollywood's most overt yet morally complex depictions of the modern white victimization narrative. They weren't talking about heroism. They were talking about the quiet panic of a man who thinks the world owes him something and can't process that it doesn't. It reframed Foster not as an everyman, but as a fragile relic of a vanished America. And whether you saw him as tragic, toxic, or both, you couldn't deny the reflection staring back.
Now, aren't you sorry you didn't let me pass through your golf course?
Hey, golf.
Now you're gonna die wearing that stupid little hat. How does it feel?
Number 15. Some characters fade when the credits roll. William Foster refused. 2 years after Falling Down hit theaters, his restless walk and barely contained fury found new life in heavy metal. In 1995, Iron Maiden dropped Man on the Edge, a blistering track that practically retold the movie beat for beat. The gridlocked opening, the lunch-filled briefcase, and that sense of being trapped in a world gone wrong. The chorus didn't whisper it, it screamed it, over and over. Falling down, and the echoes didn't stop there. In 2011, Foo Fighters picked up the baton. Their music video for Walk wasn't just inspired by Falling Down, it was a full-blown tribute. Dave Grohl, suited up in Foster's white shirt and tie, trudged through a sweltering city, replaying every meltdown with a wink. The traffic jam, the burger joint, the boiling frustration in every step. Nearly 2 decades later, the character still resonated, not because audiences wanted to be him, but because they recognized that simmering feeling he embodied. The music world just gave it an anthem and a beat to march to.
What's wrong with the street?
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean,
You're lying. What's wrong with the street?
nothing.
I knew it was fine, but I'll give you something to fix.
Oh, Jesus, man, what the hell?
Here!
Number 16. In 1997, The Simpsons introduced Frank Grimes, grimy to his one reluctant friend, a gaunt, overworked everyman who couldn't believe Homer Simpson's lazy, disaster-prone life kept being rewarded. The suit, the briefcase, the brittle temper. Grimes was no accident. The writers have admitted he was directly inspired by William D. Fenns Foster from Falling Down. Like Foster, Grimes is a man who plays by the rules, in a world that refuses to reward it. Every small injustice chips away at him until his simmering frustration turns dangerous. The difference? Foster's meltdown plays out across a sun-baked Los Angeles. Grimes' slow-motion break happens in the pastel suburbs of Springfield, ending in a shocking, darkly comic collapse that fans still debate. It was satire borrowing from satire, a reminder that the man in the white shirt and tie is never as harmless as he looks. Number 17. The studio wanted hope. They wanted William Foster to walk away, alive, maybe even redeemed, a hero for the wronged and overlooked. Michael Douglas refused. To him, the tragedy was the point. If Foster survived, the story became a fist-pumping fantasy. If he died, it stayed a warning. Douglas held the line, and in the final cut, Foster doesn't get a victory lap, just the cold truth, crashing down on a pier with nowhere left to go.
I got lots of guns.
Don't move.
On 3.
This doesn't have to be the end, Bill. You have a choice.
Oh, you have 2 choices. I can kill you, or you can kill me. 1,
Don't you want to see her grow up?
behind bars. 2,
Let's go!
3. I would have got you.
Number 18. What started as a $25 million gamble didn't just break even, it exploded. Falling Down opened in February 1993 and stormed straight to number 1 at the US box office, holding the top spot for 2 weeks. By the end of its run, it had pulled in $96 million worldwide, quadrupling its budget and proving that an angry, middle-aged man in a short-sleeved shirt could outdraw action heroes with bigger guns and bigger explosions. But here's the twist. It wasn't just popcorn money. The film crossed over into rare territory for a mainstream American thriller, Con. In May of that same year, Falling Down competed for the Palme d'Or, putting Joel Schumacher's sun-baked Los Angeles nightmare alongside the most prestigious films in the world. Writer Ebby Rose Smith even walked away with an Edgar Award for Best Motion Picture Screenplay, recognition from the mystery and crime-writing elite. It was the rare Hollywood movie that could rile up audiences, dominate the box office, and still walk the red carpet at the most exclusive film festival on Earth. Number 19. For a man whose resume already read like a Hollywood highlight reel, Wall Street, Fatal Attraction, Romancing the Stone. You'd think picking a career favorite would be impossible. But Michael Douglas never hesitated. When asked years later which role meant the most to him, he pointed to Falling Down. Not Gordon Gekko, not Dan Gallagher, William Foster. Why? Because it was raw, stripped down, a performance without the safety net of charm or romance. Douglas called it the most challenging role of his life, walking the razor's edge between sympathy and menace, forcing audiences to question if they were rooting for him or afraid of him. He knew Foster wasn't a hero, but he also knew he was unforgettable. And decades later, Douglas still sees Falling Down not just as one of his best films, but as the moment he proved he could carry the weight of a story that was equal parts thriller, tragedy, and mirror to a restless nation. Number 20. Nearly 30 years on, Falling Down hasn't cooled off. It's still a lit match in the middle of a gas leak. In classrooms, it's studied as a portrait of alienation in the late 20th century. On forums, it's dissected as a warning of what happens when the social contract snaps. And in the endless churn of online debates, William Foster keeps reappearing, sometimes as a cautionary tale, sometimes as a rallying cry. The arguments haven't changed much. Is Foster a victim of a broken system, or just a man who refuses to take responsibility? Is the film a satire of rage, or an uncomfortable endorsement of it? The fact that you can't pin it down is exactly why it still hits like a gut punch. Because Falling Down isn't just about one man's bad day. It's about how close any of us might be to crossing that invisible line, and how, once you do, there's no going back. Bonus fact, it's there in the very first scene, if you know where to look. Stuck in gridlock, sweat pouring, eyes locked forward, and right there on his bumper, the plate reads, "Defense." Not just a clever vanity tag, it's the whole character, summed up in 5 letters. Foster isn't just any commuter losing his patience. He's a man fresh out of the defense industry, a soldier without a war, a weapon without a target. It's the film's sly confession, hidden in plain sight. The audience knew exactly who he was before he ever opened his mouth. They just didn't realize how far he was about to go. Falling Down was never just a thriller. It was a pressure cooker, a slow boil of heat, fear, and fury that still simmers 3 decades later. It proved Michael Douglas didn't need to be charming to be unforgettable. And it proved that sometimes the most dangerous roads aren't the ones we drive on. They're the ones we walk in our own heads. If this one still lingers in your mind, drop a comment. Tell us what tense, unforgettable classic we should break down next. Because sometimes, all it takes is one bad day to change everything.